When Clara Morgan unlocked the creaky front door of her late grandmother's house, she wasn't just entering a home. She was stepping into the last chapter of a family legacy no one wanted to claim. The old Victorian sat hunched at the end of Birchwood Lane, an out-of-place relic surrounded by newly built townhomes and manicured lawns. It smelled of cedar, dust, and something faintly bitter, like old regret. Clara, 28, wasn't here to renovate or flip the place. She was here to disappear. After her mother's death and a mental breakdown during her graduate program in neuroscience, Clara dropped out and shut herself off from the world. Her therapist called it trauma-induced withdrawal. Clara called it survival. The house, inherited through a will she didn't know existed, offered something rare: silence. But that silence shattered on the fourth night. It began as a whisper, so soft, Clara thought it was the wind moving through cracks in the walls. She froze mid-step in the hallway, heart clenching, and waited. Nothing. She returned to bed. Then came the second whisper, clearer, deliberate, words. "Help me." Clara shot upright, her breath sharp. The voice was male, barely above a murmur, but unmistakably real. She pressed her ear against the cold plaster wall. Silence. She even knocked. Still nothing. Morning brought some clarity. Sleep deprivation? A lingering symptom of her past breakdown? She hadn't exactly been stable. Her therapist, doctor, Reyes, had warned that stress could rekindle hallucinations. Clara wanted to believe it was all in her mind. Wanted it desperately. But the voice returned. Over the next week, it grew more insistent, sometimes pleading, sometimes gibberish, always from the same section of wall near the study. Clara recorded hours of audio, but the playback never captured a thing. When she called the police, they found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no secret compartments. An officer kindly suggested she might need someone to talk to. The report was closed with a shrug and a pat on the back. That night, Clara drank coffee until her hands shook and stayed up with her phone flashlight trained on the wall. "Why don't you talk when they come?" she whispered, biting her lip. A beat of silence then. "They won't believe you." She flinched. "Who are you?" The voice didn't answer. Instead, the next day she found scratch marks on the baseboard, faint but human. She took a utility knife to the wood, carved a tiny hole, and peered inside. Nothing but darkness and old insulation. But then she saw it. A flash of movement, a blinking eye. Clara staggered back, nearly falling over. Her heart was hammering so loud she thought she might throw up. There was someone inside the wall, trapped, alive. She dialed 911 but stopped before hitting call. Who would believe her? Last time they thought she was imagining things. Her breakdown, her diagnosis, her isolation, they all painted a picture she couldn't erase. So instead, Clara did what she was trained to do back in school. She approached it logically, strategically. She sketched a layout of the house, marked all possible wall cavities, and began tapping, measuring, noting inconsistencies. In the study, the west wall measured 14 inches thicker than expected. Odd. Then in the basement, behind an old boiler, she found something else, a sealed metal grate, bolted shut. She pried it open. Behind it, a narrow tunnel. Dusty, cramped. It led to a hidden door, padlocked. From the other side, she heard it again. "You found me," Clara whispered. "I'm going to get you out." "No police," the voice said. "They'll bury it again." "Why?" The voice was silent. She took bolt cutters from the garage and snapped the lock. The door creaked open. And there he was. A man, maybe in his 40s, gaunt and pale, hunched in the corner of a tiny hidden room. His beard was scraggly, his eyes sunken, but sharp, alert, not insane, not ghostly, real. "My name's Gabriel," he said. "You're Clara, aren't you?" Her blood turned to ice. "How do you know that?" "Because I was put here by your uncle. Professor Nathaniel Morgan Clara staggered back. That's impossible. He died years ago. Gabriel looked at her with a hollow smile. That's what they wanted you to think. Clara stared at Gabriel as though she were seeing a ghost. Every instinct screamed at her to back away, to call someone, to run. But she didn't. Instead, she crouched beside him, torn between dread and disbelief. Gabriel sat hunched on the floor like a man who had forgotten how to stand. His skin clung to his bones, pale and dry, and his wrists bore faded scars, old restraint marks. The room was small and soundproofed with aging foam panels. No windows, one vent, a single dim bulb overhead, a prison built into a house. "How long have you been here?" Clara asked. 13 years, he replied without hesitation. "Since 2012. Clara's stomach twisted. That's when my uncle vanished. The university scandal." Gabriel nodded slowly. "I was one of his research subjects, voluntary at first. We were working on a neural feedback experiment, something designed to alter perception, change how the brain processes time in isolation. But then the ethics board shut it down. Too dangerous, too unpredictable. He wasn't ready to let it go." "And he chose you?" "I was easy to erase. No family, no one who'd come looking. He drugged me during one of our sessions, brought me here. When people asked where I went, he fed them lies. Then he disappeared before anyone could question it." Clara's breath caught. "Why this house?" Gabriel looked at her with haunted eyes. "Because it's where he grew up. This was his sanctuary, and his laboratory." Clara's pulse thundered in her ears. She backed out of the hidden room, then returned minutes later with water and some crackers. Gabriel ate slowly, like someone rediscovering hunger. The whole time Clara tried to piece together a fractured family past. She barely remembered Nathaniel. Her mother had cut ties with him years ago after the scandal, warning Clara he was dangerous and obsessed with control. Now it made sense. Clara didn't know what was more terrifying, that a man was hidden in her walls for over a decade, or that her own blood put him there. "Why now?" she asked. "Why speak to me after all this time?" "You moved in. You made noise. You were the first person to stop and listen." He paused. "And I recognized your voice from a recording he once played." Clara blinked. "A recording of me?" Gabriel nodded. "He kept files, video logs, psychological profiles. You were one of them." She reeled. "What are you saying?" "I think he planned to use you. He was obsessed with studying trauma, emotional rewiring, the effects of guilt and memory on the human brain." Gabriel's voice grew cold. He never stopped his research. He just buried it where no one could find it. Clara stepped back, nausea rising. The house she thought would give her peace was a tomb of experiments. She wanted to burn it down, salt the ground, but Gabriel was proof that something darker needed to be unearthed. That night, she pulled all the old boxes from the attic. One was labeled Morgan Archives. Inside, notebooks, VHS tapes, hard drives, and loose papers with patient IDs. Her name was on several. He'd tracked her academic progress, therapy records, even transcripts from her university. She played one tape. It showed Nathaniel, older than she remembered, speaking into the camera. Subject Clara Morgan, age 22. High-functioning intellect with markers for unresolved trauma. Prime candidate for cognitive elasticity experimentation. If family allows, she'll be perfect. Clara nearly dropped the remote. The next morning, she drove Gabriel to the urgent care clinic an hour away, using a hoodie and sunglasses to disguise him. She told the doctor he was a distant cousin, suffering from extreme neglect. The doctor didn't press, just called in social services. Gabriel begged her not to involve them. "They'll dig, Clara. They'll find everything, and then they'll make it disappear again." But Clara had already made up her mind. She uploaded every tape and file to a secure cloud, encrypting it. Then she contacted the only person she trusted, her old neuroscience advisor, Dr. Emil Porter, the man who had once warned her about the ethical gray areas her uncle dabbled in. When she showed him the footage, he went pale. "This is real," he whispered, "and illegal beyond comprehension." Clara nodded. "I need your help, not just to prove what happened, but to make sure no one silences it." Dr. Porter agreed. He promised to discreetly contact the press and a couple of legal watchdog organizations. Whistleblower-level exposure, the kind that couldn't be buried. But Clara wasn't finished. She returned to the house alone, sensing something was still wrong. She walked the halls slowly, listening. The place was too quiet. And then, from inside the study, behind the same wall where Gabriel once spoke, she heard it again. But this time, it wasn't Gabriel's voice. It was her uncle's. "Clever girl," the recording said, "but you've only just begun to understand what I left behind." The voice echoed through the wall, faint but unmistakable. "Clever girl," it repeated, distorted by old speakers embedded in the plaster. "But you've only just begun to understand what I left behind." Clara's fingers trembled as she traced the wall. She had torn down so much already, layers of paint, drywall, insulation, but this was deeper, intentional, built like a message only she could follow. She yanked open the panel where she first heard Gabriel, revealing a hollow compartment. Inside was a dusty speaker system powered by a small backup battery. Below it, another tape, labeled simply, "Clara, Final Phase." Her heart pounded. She fed the tape into the old player in the attic, where she'd been cataloging Nathaniel's files. The screen flickered to life, and there he was, her uncle, seated in the study she now used, hands folded like a man delivering a lecture. "Clara," he began, his voice eerily calm. "If you're watching this, then you've discovered what most would never have dared to look for. That makes you exactly who I hoped you'd become." She wanted to stop the tape, but couldn't. His voice had a hold on her. "I've studied you for years. I watched the way you unraveled after your mother's death. Not because I took pleasure in it, but because I knew your pain would make you sharp, focused. Your mind, Clara, is elastic, capable of bending in ways most cannot survive. That's what makes you valuable." Clara's fists clenched. "You were never just a niece to me," he continued. "You were a candidate, and now, having found Gabriel, having uncovered my work, you've passed the initial stages of exposure. The final phase is what you choose to do next." The screen went black. Clara stood in silence, breathing heavily. Her uncle had engineered everything, set it up like a twisted game. But it wasn't over. That tape wasn't a conclusion. It was a trap. She stormed back downstairs and tore through the study. Books, drawers, shelves, there had to be more. She found a false back behind one bookshelf, a safe, locked. But Clara had learned from her past. She retrieved a magnetized stethoscope from the garage and slowly rotated the dial, listening. Click, click, open. Inside were dozens of files, not just on her, but on others. Former students, volunteers, some marked as incomplete, others labeled terminated. Every file had patterns, psychological triggers, emotional profiles, suggested methods of manipulation. Nathaniel had been running long-term psychological experiments in secret. She flipped to the last file. It had her name, but instead of terminated or incomplete, it read, active. She froze. On the final page, subject has achieved self-awareness. Final catalyst required, irreversible moral decision. Clara sat back, stunned. Was he still watching somehow? Was this still part of the experiment? That night, she received a call from Dr. Porter. His voice was tight, urgent. "Clara, the news outlet we sent the files to, the story was killed. Legal pressure. The hard drives were confiscated. Someone's covering this up at a very high level. Her stomach dropped. What about the original tapes? Gone, he said. Our office was broken into. They left everything except the files. Clara's blood turned cold. The only remaining copies were in her possession, and now she was being watched. She turned every light off in the house, heart racing. Outside, a black car she hadn't seen before idled at the curb. No one stepped out. No headlights, no plates. This wasn't just a posthumous message. This was still active. Nathaniel wasn't working alone. The next morning, Gabriel was gone. She called the clinic, the hotel, even the bus station. No trace. No record of him ever being admitted or registered. She found a note on her kitchen table. Scrawled in rushed handwriting, "Don't trust anyone. He's still out there." G. Clara felt the walls close in. Her uncle's game hadn't ended. It had only changed players. She called Doctor Porter again. No answer. By evening, she made her decision. Clara uploaded every document, every video, every piece of data to a distributed network of whistleblower websites and anonymous cloud drives. She sent links to independent journalists, foreign outlets, watchdog groups, anyone who wouldn't be silenced by power or fear. Then she emptied the safe and lit it all on fire. The next day, the black car was gone, but 2 emails hit her inbox from encrypted sources. One contained a still image from one of Nathaniel's old tapes, Clara as a child, playing in the garden of this very house, while he watched from a distance. The second email had only one line. The experiment never ends. You just become the next observer. She stared at the screen for a long time. Then she did something she hadn't done in years. She smiled, because maybe Nathaniel was right about one thing. Clara's mind was elastic, and now it was sharper than ever. She wasn't a subject anymore. She was the one writing the rules now. End of story. The Voice Inside the Wall.